In this video, we're going to talk about 3 more reasons that your song might suck, because we've all written songs that by the end of it, we're like, or worse. We end up saying, oh, it's not even good. I don't even like this song. And then we listen to other people's songs and we're like, oh, that's awesome. What is it that was wrong with mine? So let's talk about 3 reasons that our songs might suck. So one reason that our song might suck is simply that our chorus doesn't shine. The harsh truth is simply that if our chorus isn't awesome, nobody's going to care about our song. The chorus is endlessly important. The chorus usually operates as the highlight of the song. And if the highlight of the song isn't very good, why listen to the song at all? And really, excitement for the chorus is what carries through for the rest of the song. Really, it's that repeated return of the chorus that is the lifeblood of our song that makes people continue to listen through all the different song sections, because the chorus is that part that should get everybody excited, should get everybody singing along in the car, are the lyrics that people will all have memorized if they know the song at all. They might not know the verses very well, and they might just be like, yeah, okay, cool verse, but the chorus is when they all look at each other and like, yeah, time to sing. You know what I'm talking about. That's what we want our chorus to be. If our chorus is forgettable, our song is pretty much just screwed. Let's be honest about it. So you need to make sure that your chorus is actually something memorable. And I think the easiest way to do this is to make sure that our melody in our chorus changes up significantly from the melody in the verses. Now, I think there's 2 main ways to really make sure that our melody is interesting in the chorus. One of those ways is to make sure that it's in a higher register of your vocal range so that there's added excitement, because the reality is generally higher in music tends to equate with more excitement. And this is especially true vocally. Sometimes there are songs that stay in the same vocal range with the chorus. In certain styles that can work. Certainly folk music would be an example of where that's acceptable, anything that's really conversational in tone. But for a lot of different genres and a lot of different music, you really want the chorus to sort of take it up a notch vocally. And you want to make sure a part of that is going up in your vocal range when the chorus comes. And another thing to do is that verses tend to be more conversational, and a lot of times verses will have a lot of steps and fewer leaps, which basically what that means is steps means going up by a note or going down by a note, not really going very far, whereas a leap would be like going up a third, going up a fourth, a fifth, or maybe going full somewhere over the rainbow and using a whole octave leap. So making sure you're singing in a higher vocal register in your chorus, combined with making sure the melody has more leaps than you had in the verses, and some interesting leaps will really go far, especially if it's something other than just a third, maybe doing something like a fourth or a fifth. Those type of intervals really add a lot of excitement. So making sure to do those 2 things will go a long way in making sure your chorus is really something special and interesting. Another reason that our song might suck is that we didn't take the time to make sure our lyrics flowed. It's really important to note the actual natural emphases of the words. For example, when I say the word only, there is a natural emphasis, even in the way I say it, right? It's only. It's not only, right? If I said only, you'd think, what is that? Is that like somebody's name? Is that a last name of a football player? Or like who is that? Only? Who is that? Is that a soccer player from France or something? But you know that the word is only. It's the same word, right? But it became totally different when I said only. That sounds weird. And in the same way, in our melodies and in our lyrics, we want to make sure that we're not singing a melody with the word only, where we actually make it only, because that usually sounds awkward. We generally want to make sure that the emphases in the melody lines up with the emphases in the words. So we don't want to be, for example, emphasizing the word the by making the high note of the song or the high note of the phrase that's held for a long time. That would just be weird, right? Like if it was the final countdown where we held out the and the was the high note, that would be ridiculous, right? It's the final countdown, right? It emphasizes the things that should be naturally emphasized when actually speaking the words. So we want to make sure that our lyrics flow like that, which is just making sure that the emphases of the melody match up with the emphases of the lyrics. And a third reason that our song might suck is simply that our instrumentation is forgettable. This is probably one of the most common things I see with beginning songwriters, is that they basically don't have any hooks in their song, and if they do, they're all vocal hooks. And really all the instrumentation is very just boring. It's a guitar that's strumming chords in a really conventional rhythm, and there's no interesting instrument. All the instruments that come in are really predictable. And not only are the instruments themselves predictable, which I think that part is fine or can be fine, especially if they're playing an interesting part, they all come in and play other boring parts. So for example, they'll have guitar chords that are just strummed, and it's not really a very different rhythm. The guitar is not that interesting, but it's doing its job, right? It's carrying the rhythm. Okay, that's fine. And then the drums come in, and the drum beat is also fairly conventional. And then the piano comes in. Is it doing a special piano riff or a cool hook? No, it's doing something like block chords or something slightly more interesting than block chords. And all the instruments that come in are just one very forgettable part after one forgettable part. And then the only thing that the song has that's actually remotely interesting or could be interesting is the voice. And we want there to always be more interesting parts of our song than just the voice, because the reality is that for the vast majority of us, we're not good enough singers to carry a song in a way that like the whole song is super interesting the whole time, simply because our voice is that interesting and our performance is that awesome. If your name is Celine Dion or Freddie Mercury, then sure, you can probably pull that off and nobody even notices the arrangement because your vocal performance is so captivating that who cares about the rest. But for the vast majority of us, we kind of need help from the rest of the song. And sure, maybe we can get a good vocal performance out of ourselves, and that certainly helps and is important to making sure the song is interesting. But we want to make sure that that's not the only thing in the song that's interesting. So really think about how you can add instruments to your song that actually add some intrigue and have some interesting parts. Have different rhythms, have parts that add really different textures to the song, and definitely have different hooks that maybe come in and out. Maybe you have one part of your song where the guitar is playing a sort of interesting hook, but then in the chorus, the piano takes over, and that's the one that really has an interesting part that's worth listening to. But make sure there's always at least one other instrument that is worth listening to that's sort of the star of the show besides the vocal. Maybe not always, but make sure that that's not uncommon for you. You definitely don't want a whole song that from beginning to end, really the only part that's memorable at all is the vocal. I think a good way to think of this is try to make it so that the music backdrop of your song, aka basically everything except for the vocals, make sure that that's something that actually would be somewhat interesting on its own, even if there were no vocals. So make sure that you're adding a new instrument or changing up the part that an instrument is playing every 4 measures or so that the song never musically stays the exact same for too long. It doesn't mean you need to layer in a new instrument every 4 bars, but you should be doing something like changing up the part even very subtly, making sure to build things and then break things, making sure that there's constantly some change and it's constantly evolving and there's constantly something coming in that's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So that somebody could listen to, say, your 4-minute song without the vocals at all and it be somewhat interesting. Is it going to be as interesting as a song that is meant to be without a vocal, that maybe has a melody that's being played by an electric guitar or violins or something? No, it's probably not going to be that interesting because it is missing the main part that is intriguing in the song, which is going to be your vocal, but it should be something that isn't totally boring and at least give somebody a new earworm, a new thing to sort of attach to and be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Or, ooh, I see the song is building here and, oh, okay, starting to break down and, oh, changed up during the bridge. We want to make sure that our arrangement is interesting even without the vocal. So I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, something else you'll probably find helpful is my 10 different ways to start writing a song free guide. It gives you 5 ways to start a song from a lyrical standpoint and 5 ways from a musical standpoint. So whether you're a lyrics first person or a music first person, there are 5 different ways to start writing a song for you. And personally, I think you should try both methods. Sometimes they get different results. Like, it can be easier to write absolutely killer lyrics when you write the lyrics first. It can be easier to write absolutely captivating, interesting hooks and musical parts when you start with the music first. I recommend a hybrid personally, but starting your song from different standpoints constantly is a great way to stay creatively fresh. If you constantly just grab your guitar and start by strumming a chord progression and then sing over it over and over again, eventually your songs are probably going to start to sound the same. You're probably going to eventually go a little creatively dry and be like, ugh, I don't know what to write now. I've done C, G, D a million times. And it's easy to start to lose our creativity a little bit and start to get frustrated. So if you want to avoid that, check out this guide. It will give you 10 different ways to start writing a song. You definitely want to be mixing it up. For example, maybe in your next song, instead of starting with, if you say start with guitar usually, instead, why don't you utilize your guitar and write the bass line first? Really try to write a catchy bass line and then build the rest of the song off of that. And then maybe in your song after that, whatever guitar effects you use, or maybe usually you write your song with an acoustic guitar. So maybe get out your electric guitar instead of your acoustic guitar and turn up the distortion and start writing from that standpoint rather than with your acoustic guitar, because you're probably going to write something very different because the sound of the instrument's different and it will inspire you differently. It's kind of like if you're a pianist at all and you've ever played on a keyboard with the string setting on, you find yourself fairly quickly writing in a totally different way or playing in a totally different way than you would with a piano, because just the way strings work and the sound of the strings on the keyboard is so different from the piano that you naturally play a different way. Playing a traditional piano part with the string setting on would just sound weird and terrible. So you change up the way you play because of the sound. And that's going to be true with guitars and any other instrument as well. So take advantage of that. So if you're interested in that guide, be sure to check it out. Link in the description. It goes over 10 different ways, again, to start writing a song so that you can stay creatively fresh. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll talk to you in the next one.